All right, welcome to the booth. Brian David Marshall, Randy Bueller. We are about to watch the last quarterfinal. It is Owen Turtenwald, the former Player of the Year, playing his third Pro Tour Top 8 against Paul Dean with his first Pro Tour Top 8 appearance, and they are ready to go. Hello and welcome to the fourth quarterfinal of Pro Tour Battle for Zendikar here in Milwaukee. I'm Brian David Marshall. I am joined by Pro Tour Hall of Famer Randy Bueller in the booth, and we are watching one of the just great players of the game right now, Owen Turtenwald, playing in his third Pro Tour Top 8. He is playing the Pantheon Dark Jeskai deck, and he's playing a little bit of a rematch here, Randy, because his opponent, Paul Dean, well, you know what? Paul Dean has a little bit of revenge on his mind. He's a very nice guy. He's very affable, but he would like a little revenge here on Owen Turtenwald.
Yeah, these guys were paired in the last round of the Swiss yesterday, and most people in that situation would have just intentionally drawn, shake hands with the guy across the table, and go get ready, start thinking about Sunday. Owen decided to try to play Dream Wrecker there. He decided he wanted to beat Paul Dean and try to open up a spot for his buddy Reed Duke to sneak into the top 8 with 4 losses. And Owen won the match. Paul Dean thought he'd been eliminated from top 8, but his tiebreakers managed to inch up, and he got the result he needed on a different table, and Paul snuck into the top 8 as the 8th seed anyway.
Playing against Owen is generally good for your tiebreakers. Okay, Warden in the first tree was turn 1 play from Paul Dean. He attacks for 1 on turn 2, plays a hanger back walker, while Owen has had a pair of Mystic Monasteries come into play tapped to get things started.
Yeah, both players actually on 6 cards this game.
Yeah, and it looks like Owen pushed his scry, and Paul Dean liked what he saw.
Yeah, Owen straight to Mantis Rider. Mantis Rider does a very good job of just flying over the green creatures that come out of these Abzan decks.
Yeah, it's interesting. We saw one of the other Abzan decks actually by Ricky Chin was playing Gideon's Reproach in its sideboard, and that is specifically there for dealing with Monastery Mentors and Mantis Riders out of the Jeskai decks.
Michael Majors, who was kind of the first guy to have success with Green-White Megamorph, was running Avatar the Resolute in his list. Get that reach ability in there. 3-power reach works out pretty well.
There you go.
I feel like this matchup is pretty close. I mean, the Mantis Rider is specifically very good, but Anafenza into Siege Rhino, I mean, that curve just outclasses Mantis Rider by hitting so hard. So this is definitely a matchup that can go either way.
Yep.
And again, it's a Gideon mirror, so being on the play helps.
Which, of course, the play went to Owen.
But he earned it. He played out the last round of the Swiss to get to try to get that #1 seed.
Yeah, by the way, you talk about Dream Crusher, but he also, by doing that, does assure himself that #1 seed throughout the top 8, which is just unbelievable. Being on the play in every match, no matter who he's facing. And you see Turtenwald with a couple of powerful spells. The Dark in Dark Jeskai has come from that card, Crackling Doom.
Yeah.
Although,
and then
they've gone a little darker in this one. They've gone Tassiger Dark.
Yeah, the Pantheon, they love Tassiger. They play 3 copies of Tassiger in this list. That is a lot of Tassiger. And most people with this Dark Jeskai, it's like, okay, well, I've got 3 or 4 Crackling Dooms. They've got 3 Tassigers, and they've got multiple copies of Kullagan's Command. So the Black Splash is very real. It is more than just a splash, I guess. And Crackling Doom, this matchup used to be heavily favored to Abzan. You go back last year. Crackling Doom does even things up nice. That's definitely a good card against Abzan.
See Paul holding Gideon, Murderous Cut, and Den Protector. Couple of lands in hand. What do you like here, Randy? How many hits can you afford to take from that Mantis Rider? I mean, obviously, I know the answer is 3. but at what point are you, how many turns can you afford to ignore it?
Yeah, I don't really want to spend my whole turn on a Murderous Cut is the thing.
No, 12.
mean, if he goes Gideon here, no,
Draw.
he's going to leave up Murder's Cut.
Hold on.
Owen say draw, giving, perhaps sensing that Paul might want to do something during his upkeep when he passed the turn with 4 untapped mana. Now, what's the reason for doing this during Owen's upkeep as opposed to doing it on his own turn?
Well, because if Owen has mana that he can spend fighting this, like a Dispel, or for example, then Owen won't have access to that mana during his main phase. Owen had a bunch of untapped mana. If Owen had been tapped out, Paul would have done it on his turn. But with Owen on untapped mana, Paul preferred to pick a fight on Owen's turn that would cost him some mana on this additional turn.
So he's able to play the cut and leave up mana to make his Hangerback
bigger,
Walker
yeah.
get to 3.
Yeah, it's a fine line. I like that.
Gets to Den Protect back that Murderous Cut in a turn if he wants. No action at all for him. He's
No,
got the
that
Crackling
Mantis-
Doom and the Ojutize command.
I think Paul was right to see that Mantis Rider as an important thing to kill.
So,
9.
Crackling Doom in response to activating the
Untap.
Hangerback
Yep.
Walker. Paul falls to 9. It looks like yes, drew a Dramoka's command there. You rumble in with Gideon here?
Oh, thank you.
No?
Yeah, I mean, he's
There
got
you go.
summoning sickness on the turn.
Yeah,
to
yeah,
play
no,
him,
no,
so
yeah.
You play him
Yes.
and make an ally. Next turn, maybe he'll rumble into the red zone.
That was the window to get it in.
Yeah, Owen's Ojutize command doesn't do anything particularly exciting here. I mean, the card that some Jeskai lists have, obviously, to punish a Hangerback Walker is Jeskai Charm. Put it on top, but not in the list for Pantheon. You're supposed to have a Mantis Rider, see, and then you just fly over the Hangerback Walker. You don't have to care about it.
So we may see like old school cryptic command kind of situation here where he cycles the Ojutize command to gain 4 life, draw a card.
Yeah, it comes out. No Jason's draw for Owen either. Deck just, not giving him the options he wants.
8.
Goes to 8 here.
Yeah, he could main phase Ojutize command.
And hope to
Hit Tassiger would
Oh,
probably
sure.
be the best hit
Yeah, absolutely.
because he'd be able to play it. Right, he'd have 2 mana and 5 cards in his yard. And I think this fetch land is fitting 1 fewer land in the way of those 3
I think
Tassigers.
that's the conclusion he came to as well. Yeah, here you go.
Gain 4, draw a card. I'm at 12. Yeah. Go.
Looks
With
like he drew a
Sarkin.
Sarkin.
Yeah.
There's an Abzan charm for Paul Dean. He's got Dramoka's command, Den Protector, Abzan charm. Has to figure out how to add that all up into 12 damage against
9 to 12.
Owen Turtenwald.
Plus getting. Combat. Yep. Attack.
Plus is Gideon, attacks with everybody. That's
No
10,
blocks.
but no blocks.
I'll go to 8.
Is he going to go for it?
He is going to go for it.
Yeah, I mean, Owen could have a Wild Slash here, could have a Fiery Impulse here. I think Paul puts him on not having had those cards, or they would have come up earlier.
I think it also puts him on it just by the main phase Ojutize
Of course.
Abzan
Yeah.
turn to put 2 counters on my Hangerback Walker. Resolves.
There it is. 12 damage. Gets Owen Turtenwald. Paul Dean goes up 1-0 in the revenge scheme against Owen Turtenwald. Okay, so we had a chance to talk to these players about how they sideboarded, but first we're going to show you a couple quick messages.
Standard is the name of the game at Battle for Zendikar Game Day. Put what you've learned from watching the Pro Tour into action on October 24th and 25th at your local game store. Visit magic.wizards.com/gameday for more information. Start on your road to the Pro Tour by playing in a preliminary Pro Tour qualifier. With more than 2,000 locations running events, you're sure to find one near you. Visit magic.wizards.com/pptq for schedules and information.
All right, so both of these players, you see them sideboarding. We had a chance to talk to them about what their plans are going to be. Let's hear what they had to say. All right, Owen, you played this matchup end of day 2. Same plan for the sideboard, and if so, either way, what is the plan?
I'm going to do the exact same thing I did in the Swiss, which is +1 Roast, +2 Exert Influence, +1 Dragon Master Outcast, and I'm going to remove 2 copies of Wild Slash and 2 copies of Dispel.
All right. Expecting the same outcome?
I wouldn't say expecting, I'm surely hoping. Got my fingers crossed.
All right, me too. Good luck the rest of the way in the top 8.
Thank you.
All right, I'm here with Paul Dean. Paul, what's the plan for enacting vengeance out of this sideboard?
Well, actually, this match is pretty interesting. I think it depends a lot on what he does, because he could have a few different board plans himself. He has a lot of things like Wild Slash and Kolaghan's Command, so that makes some creatures like Den Protector not very good, even though normally they're very good against Jeskai. So if I think he's going to keep all those, I'll probably have to take out the Den Protectors. But on the other hand, he's also got Disdainful Strokes and Exert Influence, so if that's the case, I'll have to take out Rhinos. But in terms of what I think is good in my deck, I'll definitely be bringing in the Abzan Charm because, that kills Mantis Rider. It also kills his Tassigers. Sometimes the game will go long and I need to draw cards, so Abzan Charm is very good. I'll probably bring in Duress to get rid of things like Ojutai's Command and Dig Through Time because that will help him get ahead in the late game. Omnixilis might be a little bit suspect because if I play him and minus him, he'll die to Kolaghan's Command or to a Mantis Rider, so I'm not sure about that. But if I think he'll take those out, I'll play Omnixilis. Same thing with Den Protector. It depends on if he brings in Kolaghan's Command. So anyway, I think I'll bring in the Den Protectors, Omnixilis, Abzan Charm, and Duress. Probably Transgress the Mind too, and take out things like Hangerback and Warden because they're quite slow. But if I'm on the play, I might bring them in because I want to curve out on him and then Wingmate Rock. That would be my best plan, but we'll see.
All right.
It depends what I think he'll do.
Okay. Good games the rest of the way in the top 8.
Yeah. Thanks.
All right. So there you hear it, Randy. He says in the beginning that he's talking about taking out his Den Protectors. He was a little nervous.
He meant Warden
doing
of the
that,
first
and he
tree?
meant the Warden of the first tree. So I'm
That
worried
makes
about getting them Wild Slashed or that he pumps them out into them and then just gets punished for it.
That makes sense.
What did you think of each player's sideboard plan? How do you like it?
I was just struck by how much better Owen's Exert Influences are in a 4-color deck than the ones we saw from the 3-color Jeskai against Abzan. Seems like a big difference having that 4th color mana for the Convoke on Exert Influence.
Exert Influence is a card that's really impressed me this weekend.
Sure.
And especially in decks like this where they have the Jace to be able to also sort of flash back the control magic. is pretty exciting.
That is true.
All right. Players are drawing up their hands. Owen will be on the play again.
Is that 2 lands for Owen?
2 lands. You see a Soulfire Grandmaster. Two Exert Influences, a Tassiger, and a Mantis Rider.
That's a lot of 5s for only having 2 lands. I mean, Soulfire Grandmasters is a solid 2-drop, but...
Can he keep that? He decides he can.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he's 1
both-
land away from a turn 3 Mantis Rider, which is kind of exactly what he wants to do. That 1 land would probably also turn on Tassiger.
And then after all that, the Warden of the first tree stayed in. Maybe he did meet
On the
that
draw,
protector.
too.
Yeah, on the draw. You know what? It did some good work for him
Did.
in game one, and that may have changed his influence. Then you got to look at Owen Turtenwald's resume. You heard the players.
17 Grand Prix top 8s at this point?
Yeah.
With multiple wins in there, too.
I mean, coming up on 400 career pro points. This is his third Pro Tour top 8.
18.
So there is the Soulfire Grandmaster.
Your turn.
There's another card we saw Paul talk about in the sideboard video. That Abzan Charm. So it goes up to 3/3 on his board in the first tree.
Okay, your turn.
Owen needs a land.
There is...
Crackling Doom.
Attack.
Oh, that was a Crackling Doom. That was not a third land?
Correct.
Yeah. Cool.
Yes, that
Wow.
ends the turn.
Yeah,
Look at that
Paul.
exhale from Paul Dean.
Paul's face just told the entire story. I'm in the Pro Tour top 8. I'm playing against one of the best players in the game right now.
I'm looking to get a little vengeance on him. He tried to knock me out of this top 8.
I don't know that Paul's all that worried about the vengeance angle.
Well, not the vengeance per se, but it'll feel good. It will feel good to beat him if he does.
And now the third land exists, but it comes into play tapped.
And offends of the foremost meant Soulfire Grandmaster could not attack.
I do like this keep from Owen, though. I think he was right. He's got multiple draw steps to come up with any third land, and his hand turns on beautifully. The exert influences are going to take a while, but whatever. The rest of the hand turns on just fine. I would have kept it. I think it's correct to keep it.
No blocks.
No blocks from Owen. He goes down to 6. Here's another Warden.
Your turn.
Owen draws for the turn. That
Dig
is...
through time.
You can play a Mantis Rider here.
He's at 6?
Yeah.
He's already down to 6. Now it's time to play second spell of the game. Wow.
Abzan will not go quietly into the night.
No, which means we're going to have an Abzan deck in the finals, right? We get Abzan in the semis?
Yeah.
This was not a Siege Rhino tournament. I was here. This is not what this weekend has been about so far.
17.
Owen passes the turn.
If only the anti-Siege Rhino camp had some champion on the other side of the bracket they could rally behind. Someone with maybe some experience at winning these things.
I'm gonna try to level this guy.
Gonna try to level this guy, says Paul. You pass a turn with 3 untapped mana. You must have something.
Right.
Sure.
Owen thinks about it, says sure.
He basically just had decided to sit on Crackling Doom instead of playing the Mantis Rider, which
Yeah.
totally makes sense. And yeah, leveling the Warden. He's just thinking to represent things to Paul. He doesn't actually have a decision here. I mean, Crackling Doom's going to take out Anafenza, and that's just...
Combat.
I guess his decision is whether to chump block with the Soulfire Grandmaster. He does gain 2 life from Crackling Doom, so the 2 Wardens are not quite lethal.
Sacrifice this one. I go to 8. You're at 8. And I go to 15.
Oh, right, it had a +1/+1 counter from the Anafenza previously, so he can sack the Warden.
Okay, I'll attack.
And now he does have to chump block.
Yes.
Damage. 6.
Ugly.
Go to 14. Yep.
And here comes Wingmate Rock, bringing a friend to the party. A card Sam Black described as unbeatable.
What about with...
Which is why he always plays it.
Yeah. What about when you only have 3 lands?
Your turn.
There's Tassiger.
14 to 6, am I right?
Mm-hmm. Owen doesn't scoop. That's what's going on, Paul. You've got it.
3 games. 3 games.
And
Hey, half-hearted good
Dean.
games from Owen.
I mean, great tournament. He wishes good luck to his opponent, Paul Dean.
Yeah.
Paul Dean is through to the semifinals. Owen Turtenwald is eliminated from the tournament. Abzan deck will be in the finals. We know Abzan versus Abzan coming up next in the semifinals, and we have Dark Jeskai versus Jeskai.
We have John Finkel. That's
Yes.
what matters. We have John Finkel trying to complete his case for the Hall of Fame.
For the third Hall of Fame, because you get
post Hall of Fame John Finkel. Look, it's been 10 years since John got in.
Right.
It's his 4th top 8. It could be his 2nd win. He's got post Hall of Fame John Finkel is a Hall of Famer, right?
Yes, he is.
I mean, he only shows up to the Pro Tours. Doesn't really have any Grand Prix results to pad it, so he needed the 4th top 8. His 2nd win would definitely ice the case for post Hall of Fame John Finkel as a
I mean, he
Hall of
could
Famer.
probably divide his career up into 3 pockets of 5 top 8s and just get into the Hall of Fame 3 times.
Yeah, you might be able to squeeze 4 out of it if you were
you get the
gerrymandered
16th.
it correctly.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Right, put the wins in the smaller number pockets.
Right.
I got it. Wow. So Paul Dean, that's loses to Owen in the last round.
Yeah.
Thinks he's knocked out of top 8. Finds out he's in the top 8 on breakers. Owen's tiebreakers, of course, boosting him by percentage points, and then he faces Owen again in the first round of the quarterfinals and is able to take him out.
We did have one great quarterfinal match. That was not the best match of Magic we've ever seen, obviously. I think we're due for the semis. Right?
Okay.
Get another good one.
All right. Well, you know what? The semis are coming up. Right now, we're going to send it back to the news desk and Rich Hagon.
Thanks to BDM and Randy. He's right, the semi-finals are coming up. The players are on a little bit of a lunch break. We have a ton of great stuff. Don't go away. We'll recap the quarterfinals with Ian Duke in just a moment. We'll show you the last part of Inside R&D, lifting the curtain on how Battle for Zendikar was made by the boys and girls back at Wizards of the Coast. Then Alain Bergeau, the director of Global Organised Play, will be live here at the news desk, sitting alongside Marshall Sutcliffe to walk you through some of the changes, some of which have been announced this week and some of which will be news to you, I'm sure. So Marshall and Len coming up during the lunch break, and then Marshall, Ian, and the rest of the team will be with you to work our way through the semi-finals. And the first semi-final, as you'll see in a moment, will be Ryoichi Tamada against John Finkel. So don't you dare go away. Why don't we talk then about the quarterfinals? Ian, you began the morning in the booth, which meant that you had a terrific ringside seat on our first quarterfinal. Let's look at the bracket. And our first quarterfinal was Ricky Chin of Canada against Ryoichi Tamada of Japan. What happened?
So this was a fantastic match.
Right.
I mean, all 3 games, excellent. Ricky took the first game. It looked like things were looking bad for Tamada in the second game. We were almost counting him out as of, turn 4 or 5, but he battled his way back in, came back, won the race, and then game 3 was also fantastic. Yet another game where Tamada looked like he was down for the count as of turn 4 or 5, but he, battled his way back in, looked like Tamada was going to win. Then for a little while, it looked like Ricky Chin was going to win. And then, Tamada swung back again and ended up winning the race. So, I mean, just a fantastic match. If you didn't get to see it, go back and watch it. Definitely highly recommend it.
Yeah, if you took snapshots from the overhead camera at multiple places through those second and third games and goes, who wins left or right, you would have no clue a lot of the time. You'd be wrong a lot because it was really swingy, but not in the kind of way that you just go, oh, here's enormous play. It was really subtle and incremental and edging back towards parity. And okay, now I think I've got the edge here, unless you do any of these 4 things that shift things back. It was a really tremendous game of Magic.
Yeah, a lot of interesting decision-making on the part of both players, and especially if you go back and watch the match and put yourself in the shoes of either one of the players and just watch how that match plays out and thinking about, I don't know what is in my opponent's hand. There's so many options here, he could have, depending on how he attacks, and, there's Dramoka's Command, which is a card with a lot of flexibility and decision-making involved there, too. So the permutations were just, pretty crazy there.
Yeah, fantastic work, and well done to Ryoichi Tamada making it through. Well, then we had our headline double act, Paolo Vita Damarosa in his 10th Pro Tour top 8 against John Finkel in his 15th. But Ian, you can't always guarantee great Magic, and let's just be fair, it wasn't great magic through no fault of the players.
That's right. Two heavyweights here for sure. Absolute legends of the game. Two of the best players, currently playing and maybe ever playing. So everyone was hyped for this match. It was going to be awesome, but it kind of turned out like one of those, headlining boxing matches where, one of the champions gets knocked out in like the first round. It was just pretty quick games. Paulo had some awkward draws in the first game. He was mana flooded. Didn't really have much going on. John was able to take care of his first couple threats and end the game quickly with a Mantis Rider. And then game 2 was kind of the reverse of that. Paulo had a couple mulligans, stalled on lands a little bit, had an awkward draw, and Finkel this time a little bit mana flooded, but still was able to close things out.
All right, so John Finkel advances, and that will be our first semi-final at the end of the lunch break. Finkel, Tamada will be semi-final 1. So then we moved on to see whether Kazuyuki Takamura of Japan or Martin Muller would advance. This was Jeskai tokens for Muller and Kazuyuki Takamura with Abzan, wanting to say to his future wife, he's getting married at the end of the year, wanted to say to her, one day in this game I've been playing all this time, I'm going to make the top 8. Well, now he has also made the top 4 because Kazuyuki Takamura won this one by 2-0. And again, it was pretty comfortable for the Japanese player. So we had 2 Japanese players out of the first 3 semi-finalists. And then we moved to Owen Turtenwald, the 1 seed against Paul Dean. Turtenwald had beaten Dean yesterday in the last round of Swiss, potentially knocking Dean out of the top 8, but got in right on the narrowest of margins, 600th of 1% on tie breaks. Dean came back, had the puncher's chance, and in the end, again, in a match that was pretty one-sided, it was Dean that advanced. And as you can see there, the 5, 6, 7, and 8 seeds advance to our semi-finals. So, Ian, we've got some great action to look forward to later in the afternoon. But one of your other hats, you commentate for us at the Pro Tours, but your day job, what do you do?
I'm a developer in R&D, which means I work on sort of the final design and balance of Magic sets.
Okay, so you were involved in a battle for Zendikar, which means you may see more of Ian in just a few moments, because if you haven't seen already, up on the website, parts 1 and 2 of Inside R&D, we had a chance to meet Ian and all the team that worked on Battle for Zendikar. Here's the final part of that right now. The first time we were here, Zendikar was an adventure world, a place for roaming bands of mercenaries and glory seekers, fulfilling quests and avoiding dangerous traps. Now, all the races of Zendikar have to converge with one purpose. Can you defeat the mighty Eldrazi in the battle for Zendikar?
If Gideon is ever aware of a problem that he thinks he could fix, usually through action, he can't set that aside.
For Gideon, we knew that he was going to have to turn into a creature. This is Gideon's shtick. We try to make sure that every planeswalker has sort of an iconic ability so that Liliana feels like a necromancer, Chandra feels like a pyromancer, Jace feels like a mind mage, Nissa is an animist, Gideon is the soldier. So he becomes a soldier, and because this is Zendikar, he becomes a soldier ally. So he plays nicely with all of your cards that care about allies.
Gideon has come here to help the Zendikari. One of his big roles is to kind of not take everything on his own shoulders. Part of the theme of this whole block is, finding your allies and kind of gathering people to work together toward a common goal. And so Gideon's going to take on this more of a leadership role than he has had in the past, almost like this kind of general type role, and it's reflected on his card.
We want to show that Gideon is working with the allies on this plane. And he becomes an ally, he makes allies, but an unusual thing is if all your allies need is a boost, he'll show up, give you an emblem, and immediately go on his way to solve other problems and leave the battlefield. That's really different.
Kiora is a merfolk planeswalker, a native of Zendikar, who loves gigantic sea monsters. She just takes joy and a kind of reverence in krakens and serpents and giant octopuses and all of these enormous titans of the deep.
Kiora stands up for anything that would attack her or things that she loves. That's what's at her heart. So when Zendikar came under attack, she went out for a bigger weapon, something bigger than the Eldrazi. She came back with a God's Bident. I mean, this was pretty huge. She literally stole Thassa's Bident from Theros, brought it back, stolen God's Bident, ready to wield against these attacking Eldrazi. And Kiora now, she not only has the power of Zendikar's seas behind her and all the creatures, she has this new power from a foreign land. What better way to face a foreign threat but with a foreign weapon?
Kiora was originally created as a character for Duels of the Planeswalkers that led a ramp deck, a blue-green ramp deck. And I think this card really plays into that. It lets you get lands, it lets you get creatures, and then at the end it gives you this emblem that rewards you for playing giant creatures and also gives you octopus tokens, which I think is just adorable.
So Ob Nixilis is the man, the myth, the legend. He is formerly a planeswalker, formerly a human, and currently he is a demon. And he has been stuck on Zendikar, and the hatred he has for this plane has grown over time exponentially. He thinks Zendikar is the most miserable place in the multiverse to live. And all he wants to do is get out of here. He would love nothing more than to see Zendikar fall to the Eldrazi, but only after he gets out. In order to get out, Ob Nixilis is going to have to regain his spark. So we'll see how that goes for him, because time is running out as the Eldrazi threat is growing.
So Ob Nixilis is a bad guy here. Ob Nixilis was trapped on Zendikar for a long, long time, and now just wants the place gone. Never wants to have to think about it again, doesn't want any part of it, just gone. Real negative guy. So he's just all of the abilities we wanted to point in that direction. So you draw a card, gotta pay life for it. Creature, kill it. Emblem, player, kill him. Just get rid of everything.
I am always really excited when we can make a simple card that we haven't made before, and I'm kind of amazed that this many years into making Planeswalkers, we were able to make one that was so simple, so direct, and yet so evocative of this character. Really makes me happy from an elegance standpoint.
In some ways, last time we were in Zendikar, there were almost two different sets. There was Zendikar and Worldwake, that was one set of mechanics, and there was Rise of the Eldrazi, it was a completely different set of mechanics. And so the Eldrazi side was borrowing from that, while the Zendikar side was borrowing from Zendikar and Worldwake. But one of the interesting things was, we wanted to get a sense of who they were and who Zendikar was, but it had to be through the context of they're fighting the Eldrazi. There were a lot of cool things we did last time, like traps and quests that, like, I'm sure if we revisit Zendikar, that's something we might do again. But right now, it's like, this wasn't a story about them going on adventuring quests. Like, they're fighting the Eldrazi. And so we really had to focus on what were the key things to make that happen.
In original Zendikar, the allies were a small band of creatures that were going around on adventures. In Battle for Zendikar, the allies are pretty much everyone on Zendikar, coming together to fight against the Eldrazi. So this time, their abilities aren't just affecting allies, they're affecting every creature you control.
Early in that pre-design process, Rosewater knew he wanted to really lean on the colorlessness of the Eldrazi. And to contrast that with the Zendikari, he really wanted to play with the color side of things with them. And, you know, that idea that you have allies from all over the color pie doing very different colored kind of things. We circled around on that one a lot initially, that we were trying out some like green matters. That doesn't work because then it becomes colorless matters, green matters, white matters, red matters, and instead circled around like, well, having lots of color matters.
Converge is a mechanic that we added in during development actually to sort of broaden and deepen the limit environment, so there are more different things you could do. We really like the idea of allowing you to draft sort of a 5-color deck, a multicolor deck, and it puts things at a stark contrast with the Eldrazi, who are very much about colorlessness, and now here you can build a deck that's very colorful. So take the card to Juru Stalwart, for example. This enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter for each color of mana spent to cast it. So, you know, normally it's a 0/1, but it can be as big as a 3/4 if you spend 3 different colors of mana to cast it. And this is great because it's a nice reward for the Converge deck. A 3-mana 3/4 is a better creature on average than you get for 3 mana, and it's also defensively statted, so it can help your multicolor deck survive to get all of your colors online.
I really like Converge because it rewards you for having multiple colors, but it doesn't punish you if you don't draw all of them. The 3-color cards, like we saw in Khans of Tarkir, if you only draw 2 of your colors, they're just useless. But a card like Woodland Wanderer, if you only draw 2 of your colors, it's a 4-mana 4/4 with 2 keywords. The bad version of the card is a 4-mana 4/4 of 2 keywords.
So on the Zendikar side, when we did the board and talked about what we could bring back, the number one thing was landfall. Like landfall was definitely the top-rated mechanic, and we knew that people loved landfall. So like, how do you come back to Zendikar and not do the most iconic mechanic from the set? So we knew going in we were doing landfall. The big question for us was, are there ways to sort of do landfall that A, didn't make some mistakes of last time with landfall, make it a little too aggressive, and B, are there some new twists and new things we could do with it?
So coming back to landfall, we wanted to have some twists on it. One of those twists is landfall, where you get an extra bonus if you played a land of a certain type. For example, Orin Reef Hydra. It's a huge Hydra that when you play a land, it gets a +1/+1 counter. But if that land is a forest, it gets 2 +1/+1 counters. That pretty quickly becomes something that's big enough to fight Eldrazi.
I knew that we were going to have the Zendikar fight the Eldrazi, and that something had to help tip the scales. And what we realized is the Zendikars had an ally that they didn't quite realize they had right away, which is Zendikar itself. Last time we were there, we kind of learned that Zendikar is kind of sentient. Like Zendikar itself, the reason it was reacting the way it was, the danger of the world, was it's reacting to all these creatures trapped inside of the Eldrazi. And so Zendikar doesn't like the Eldrazi. It understands the Eldrazi are bad for it. And so we wanted the land itself kind of coming to the fight.
The Awaken mechanic is sort of the third faction here. You have the Eldrazi, you have the allies, and you have the land of Zendikar itself. So Awaken was a way for us to get a lot of lands physically getting into combat without having to have a whole lot of these special lands that animate themselves. This way you can animate any land. Scatter to the Winds, I think, is a great example of the strategy that we wanted to enable, which was a control strategy. This is a counter spell, or a cancel, I should say, with the Awaken ability. So it is both a control element and a win condition in the late game. It's everything you need in one little package.
Awaken also has some exciting cross synergy in the set with the cards that care about colorless creatures, because the land that you animate is still a colorless creature.
There we are in the meeting room, and everything is going this way where we're planning this out. But we have some very clever players. We have a lot of clever players, and Ben Hayes drafts a lot of Awaken cards. And instead of doing what we were talking about and having a 3 here and a 4 here, suddenly he's got a 7/7 because he put all the counters on the same land. And his next Awaken's going to be on the same land, and he's made something bigger than an Eldrazi by using 3 Awaken cards.
What happens when you take the fastest limited format of all time and the slowest limited format of all time and combine them together? Well, you get kind of a medium speed format, which is pretty nice, actually. We like medium speed. We like games where you have enough time to make some decisions, but we also, like to have people be able to play an aggressive deck and have a chance of winning if that's what they want to do.
When people look back at Battle for Zendikar in a few years from now, I hope that they can really appreciate the work that went into taking these two very, very disparate card sets in original Zendikar and Rise of the Eldrazi and crafting a seamless experience that made it really feel like it was part of the same world.
With Seagate liberated and Ulamog apparently on the brink of defeat, things are starting to look up for Zendikar. But what happens next? For that, you'll need to join us on Inside R&D, Oath of the Gatewatch. But until we do meet again from Inside R&D here at Wizards of the Coast, I'm your host, Rich Hagan, saying bye.